it would just be very clear that I was awesome at writing and people would give me jobs. And that didn't happen.
Welcome to this new podcast by Into the Minds. Today my guest is Michael F. Schein. His latest book, The Hype Handbook, promises to master the art and science of using shameless propaganda for personal and social good. And he will be interviewed by myself and my fellow colleague and fellow podcaster, David Schreiner-Kahn. Hello, David, and hello, Michael.
Hey there. It's great to meet you.
Nikolai.
So, Michael, let's start at that podcast. Can you tell us a little bit what you learned during that journey when writing this book? Are you proud of what you have accomplished with the book itself?
I am proud of it. Even though I own a business, an agency, a marketing agency, which I enjoy, I was a writer before I was a business person. And so when I set out to write this book, I not only wanted to create a handbook that anyone could use to promote themselves in any kind of circumstance, I wanted to write a good book. I really wanted to just not create a business card under another name. And I feel like I've done as much of that as I could. I feel like I've at least come part of the way of accomplishing that, so I'm pretty proud of how it turned out.
David is one of the first who has actually received a book. Yeah? So it's not even available in Europe right now. David, have you read the book already?
I have read the book, and Mike, it's really well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's well written. He has accomplished his goal. So let's now deal a little bit into what he has written. Actually, where does the idea of the book actually come from, Michael?
So I mentioned that I was a writer, and I had fallen into a corporate job that I was at for close to a decade. And in the first 3 years of that job, I learned a lot. But after that, I was really there out of fear. I worked hard and I started to do better and better and make more and more money. I wasn't rich, but enough to make it hard to leave. And I was just terrified to leave. But eventually I did. And I became a freelance writer, you could call it a copywriter or content writer. And my idea was that because I had always been told I was a good writer, I would just be able to sort of go out and write, and it would just be very clear that I was awesome at writing and people would give me jobs. And that didn't happen. I mean, for about a year, I almost went broke. I mean, I had money saved up. I really didn't have enough jobs to support myself, and it was terrifying. And I read every sales and marketing book that there was, and they didn't really do very much for me. They were very theoretical, very technology oriented, use this and this social platform, these sales funnels, whatever. So in a moment of desperation, I thought back to how, even though I had started thinking of myself as bad at marketing and sales, I was actually really good at marketing at a different time in my life, although I didn't call it marketing. I called it hyping things up. I used to play in bands. I had an alternative magazine in high school, and I was always really good at using this sort of benevolent mischief to drive a lot of attention. We used to sell out clubs. We used to, we convinced our school principal to make it a formal school club and made it more popular than the school newspaper, these sorts of things. So I said, what if I took that approach? What if I started studying the mischief makers and trying to apply their stuff for my stuff and doing it in an ethical way? And I did, and it worked really well. So well that it became a company. I started doing that for people and companies. And I just figured that, it would be great to have a tool that people could use that wasn't just, use Instagram, use Clubhouse. That's the new one. The Clubhouse Guide to Marketing, which will be obsolete in 6 months. I thought it would be good to have kind of a handbook based on fundamental principles of mass psychology that anyone could use, especially people doing great work could use to, bring an audience to their stuff.
And in your book, so in the introduction, you tell that story of someone that you pissed off. Can we say it like this? And interestingly, that's something you have in common with David. It's been a book. It's been a guest in your book, but it's been also a guest in David's podcast. Can you tell us a bit about that story?
So the dirty little secret about that is that my pissing off this person led to that person becoming a guest on David's podcast. I have known David for a long time, and this guy knows how the game is played. And after we had our little war, I connected him with David, and he was on David's show. But
say his name, because
So it's Gary Vaynerchuk. Not everyone knows who he is. In our world, he's a big deal, and he's this internet guru guy, one of the biggest ones, and he would constantly go around and tell people that it's usually young people that they had to hustle around the clock, to the extent that like they should be tweeting from the toilet, like never stop working, never stop grinding, and that's the only way to have anything that resembles a good life. And I thought that was ridiculous, because the thing about Gary Vaynerchuk is that although he's a hard worker, he's only a salesman, meaning he owned a really good wine-based business. He was selling wines, over the internet and doing it in a very cool way, and I really respect that business. But he didn't make the wine. He didn't own the vineyard. He didn't have to figure out how to make the wine taste better. So what if you have to do the work? You can't be hustling and tweeting 24 hours a day. So I wrote an article for Inc., and I got that Inc. column before I was anybody. I just sort of networked my way into it. And I wrote this article in Inc. called Why Gary Vaynerchuk is Flat Out Wrong. And I was scared to write it, but basically I knew that creating an enemy would bring me some attention, but I never could have, it went beyond my wildest dreams. Like that night, he responded to me by video using my name and flipping out, and all of his followers blew up and called me lazy and an idiot and this and that. And it was like the beginning of my career. I started getting all these fans who thought the way I did, but didn't have a leader. And it literally launched my ability to make a living in this industry, and it hasn't stopped since. So,
David, were you scared when you had Gary on your show?
Well, the interesting thing about having him on my show was, we actually we tried to take a lesson out of Mike's playbook and tried to pair Gary with another thought leader who has a following, who we thought would have very different viewpoints and would create some buzz because there would potentially be some arguments between the two of them. And it turned out they kept agreeing on everything. Every question I would ask, they pretty much agreed. So there really wasn't any controversy. So it was really pretty much like every other interview I did. But
I'm pretty sure I know what happened there. So Gary V reacted emotionally, and all of his fans went crazy. And I started getting all this attention, and he looked stupid, And so that night, or like 3 days later, after this went on for like half a week, one of his fervent fans emailed me for the 5th time that day, or tweeted at me, and said, I'd keep telling you basically what an idiot you were, but Gary put out an order saying that we should stop pushing this issue. I forget the exact words, but the idea was Gary is smart, and I think after he had his initial blast of like, I hit his soft spot, he realized he was only helping me, he's a controversial figure. So ever since then, I've done so many interviews where I've talked about this story because the book's, gotten some buzz and it's been somewhat successful, and he has not once responded. So I think it was the same thing. I think he was on that show playing the good guy because, he's not a dummy. He knows psychology as well as anybody. But he couldn't help it in the beginning. You know what I mean?